Welcome to Radical Self-Worth, the podcast where healing is intentional, transformation is personal, and freedom from narcissistic abuse is your reality. Here we dive deep into reclaiming your power, breaking the chains of toxic relationships, and rewriting your story, one bold healing step at a time. Together we'll explore the tools, wisdom, and strategies to not just survive, but thrive. If you're ready to heal your heart, shift your mindset, and create a life built on self-worth, peace, and limitless possibilities, then you're in the right place. It's time to rise. It really is. It's time to heal, and it's time to live your truth. This is Radical Self-Worth. I am Jeremia Renee. Let's begin. Welcome to Radical Self-Worth. We are here exploring healing, growth, and empowerment from the chains of narcissistic abuse and emotional trauma. I'm your host, Jeremia Renee, and today we're diving into a critical topic, breaking the chains, identifying the roots of narcissistic abuse. This might be triggering for some of you if you're new to this topic and the lingo and the vibration is not familiar. But I can guarantee you that becoming aware of what it is that you are actually dealing with on a spiritual level and also on a awareness level will be very beneficial to your healing, your growth, and the awareness of yourself and the power that you have within you to heal. So whether you're just beginning to recognize the impact of narcissistic abuse, or you've been on a healing journey for years, like myself, awareness is truly the foundation of freedom. So by understanding the roots of this toxic cycle, you can rebuild your life, reclaim your power, and step into the person you were always meant to be. So let's get started. In this first segment, we're going to talk about what is narcissistic abuse. And how it really just goes beyond toxic relationships. It's a pattern of control, manipulation, and emotional harm that's rooted in the abuser's deep insecurities. Tactics like gaslighting, love bombing, and triangulation are used to destabilize their victims. This type of abuse can happen in any relationship, romantic, familial, platonic, or professional. Its effects ripple into all areas of life, damaging your confidence, relationships, and even your sense of reality. But why do these dynamics happen, and why are some people more vulnerable? Let's dig a little bit deeper. Now, identifying the roots of narcissistic abuse, to break free, we need to understand the patterns that keep us stuck. The first one is childhood conditioning. Growing up in environments where love was conditional creates a need for external validation, making us vulnerable to exploitative relationships. And for me, my childhood conditioning was very religious, very toxic, and very narcissistic. I just remember not really knowing or understanding how to tap into my emotions and not really feeling safe enough to do that. And not really understanding how to express myself and my truest emotions because we were not privy to that. It wasn't something that we were even allowed to do. And so I grew up just not knowing how to express love, not really knowing how to express pain, not really knowing how to express vulnerability and how I was actually feeling. And there were just so many moments I remember in my childhood feeling so many different feelings and not really knowing how to express them or what they even felt like. And to this day, because I had struggled with so much abuse, like my emotional reactions became, and I mean, obviously it's a lot less now, but it was really difficult for me in the beginning of my awareness journey to understand what it was and articulate what it was that I was feeling. And being able to express freely and feel safe enough to do that and not be gaslit by a narcissist is huge. And that'll be a breakthrough that you'll begin to experience once you become more aware of exactly what you're feeling and how to express it. So number 2 is trauma bonding. And trauma bonding is the abuser's cycle of affection and cruelty forms an addictive bond that is difficult to break. And if you grew up in a toxic family dynamic, then you'll understand what trauma bonding is. In a lot of narcissistic families, we have bonds with different family members who are abusive, and we don't even know they're abusive. We're just used to the behavior because that's our reality. That's just what we've grown accustomed to. And in the religious context, in the religious environment, you're consistently gaslit, and that's the normal. Like you don't even know another way of living or being, because being gaslit like consistently is a normal thing. So you start to become familiar with toxic behavior, and it just becomes a part of who you are. And once you start to heal, you start to unlearn the toxic habits and traits that you had as a way of just kind of existing, because you don't really know any other way to exist. And in a romantic relationship, the trauma bond is it happens consistently. You go through the love bombing stage, and after the love bombing stage, then the toxic behavior starts again. And then you go back into the love bombing stage. It's like a cycle of toxic abuse. And when you're so used to toxicity, you just allow the abuse to continue because you don't see any other way of being or living. And so you just start to just exist and live in a low vibrational existence, which is so incredibly draining. And so you want to break that trauma bond. And in this podcast, we're going to learn how to do it, but I want you to just kind of understand what these patterns are so that you can begin to break them. Number 3 is self-doubt and gaslighting. Abusers erode your confidence and sense of self, leaving you in a constant state of confusion. And for me, this was consistently questioning my reality when someone would gaslight you and say, "Oh, you're being too sensitive," or that's not what I said. And you have to like go back into your memory and like be like, wait a minute, I could have sworn that is exactly what you said. And I remember even during my marriage with my ex SP, I remember always telling him, I wish I had a recorder for the times that you say that you said something and that you didn't say it, because it was so consistent. So number 4 is unhealed wounds. Past experiences of rejection, abandonment, or betrayal make it easier for narcissists to exploit your vulnerabilities. And it's so true. Going into relationships with unhealed wounds is a red flag. And if you really don't take the time to heal from, these wounds of rejection and abandonment and betrayal. A narcissist, you'll attract another narcissist, and they'll exploit those vulnerabilities and use them to their advantage. So it's so important to make sure you do the work on yourself to heal, and you're doing that by listening to this podcast. So congratulations, because you're manifesting a healthy relationship by manifesting a healthy version of yourself by taking the steps to do it. Number 5 is societal norms. Cultural expectations, especially for women, to prioritize others perpetuate cycles of self-sacrifice. But self-sacrifice isn't the same as self-love. And this is huge, because I think a lot of women, we are so prone to sacrifice ourselves for our children, sacrifice ourselves for our marriages, sacrifice ourselves to our dreams or for our dreams, or we sacrifice our dreams, the things that we really want and desire, because we're so conditioned to believe that we have to put other people in front of us, and that we don't matter, our needs don't matter, our desires don't matter. But that's just the furthest thing from the truth. And it's time that we break these habits and these cycles. So that's why you're listening to this podcast. So let's get into segment 3, the impact of narcissistic abuse. Narcissistic abuse has far-reaching consequences. The first one is emotional impact. Anxiety, depression, and PTSD often result from prolonged abuse, as it rewires the brain to stay in fight or flight mode. And I'm telling you guys, for years, I lived in fight or flight mode, not even realizing that that's how I was living. I was consistently in survival mode, not realizing that I was making myself sick and feeling like I was on this continuous loop and this hamster wheel that I couldn't get off of. And it was extremely daunting and painful. And I just remember feeling like I couldn't do it anymore. And I wanted to just give up. I wanted to go back to the high vibrational environment that I knew I came from. And if you have been in this situation, I'm really trying not to cry, but it's just the reality of coming out of this type of abuse. When you start to tap into the higher realms of reality, the higher realms of who you truly are, because I know if you're listening to me, you are a chosen one. You're a chosen vessel, and you want better for yourself, and you want to reach the highest timeline of yourself. And this is the way to do it. It's by breaking free of the cycles of abuse and understanding that you are more than what the narcissistic abuse taught you and conditioned you to be. So be encouraged, because you are in alignment with your highest path, and you're going to get there. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You will get there. It has already happened. That is the reason why you clicked onto this video, because it's already in motion for you, and you're going to reach the highest version of yourself, because that version of you exists. It already exists. Everything is already done. So be encouraged in that. The other one is physical impact. Emotional stress can lead to insomnia, headaches, and even chronic illness. A lot of people who have been in narcissistic relationships or have been in toxic family dynamic structures, narcissistic families, are chronically sick. There's a lot of chronic illness. I remember a friend of mine, a former friend of mine, was constantly dealing with sickness. She was always sick. I just remember her always saying, "Oh, I am struggling with this," or I have fibroids, or I can't. My digestive system isn't working." And it was because she had so much abuse growing up. And my heart goes out to her even still, because I now more than ever realize that her childhood, and she probably didn't even realize the psychological effects that her narcissistic mother did to her womb, because she couldn't get pregnant. And I always really felt for her because she wanted kids so bad. And I haven't seen her for years, so I don't really know if that situation has changed. I really hope that it has for her, because she deserves to have some children. But I just remember her always being sick and always being stressed, and she could barely sleep. They lived with us for some time, and that was when I was in my toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationship or marriage, and she was always chronically ill. I never really dealt with chronic illness in that sense, but I was always constantly stressed. I was always stressing out. But a lot of that too came because of children and dealing with the abuse at the same time. And, the emotional impact and the stress that it causes you, it's draining. And so these are things that, the consequences of this type of abuse and staying in these types of situations and relationships are incredibly, incredibly harmful to your well-being. So the next one and last one is life choices. Survivors often second-guess decisions, stay in toxic environments, or self-sabotage due to conditioned unworthiness. And I will say this specifically for the religious narcissist, or people who grew up around religious narcissism. You are constantly fed unworthiness. You are constantly fed shame. You are constantly fed guilt and self-doubt and fear. And so it causes you to stay in toxic relationships and environments where you are not celebrated. You are constantly shamed and guilted and seen to look like you are something that you are not. And you will constantly self-sabotage and gaslight your own self because of the conditioned ways of thinking and being. And I just want to declare and decree over you right now, if you are listening, that these are things that are going to, right now, they will be removed from your energy. Conditions of your mind that have told you that you are not enough. I decree and declare that those thoughts, those toxic thoughts in your mind are destroyed, and they are null and void, so that you can move forward with confidence, with self-assurance, reassurance to knowing who you are and what you are capable of doing and being on this planet. Awareness really is the first step to freedom. And once you see these patterns, and you can start breaking them for yourself, know that you have the power within you to break these cycles. You really, really do. So segment 4 is steps to break the chains. Healing it's a process, guys. It's a process. And if you've been one of the, I'm going to say lucky ones, because you're chosen for this path, you were destined for this path. And as hard as it has been healing from narcissistic abuse, it's one of the best, it's one of the best paths to a fulfilling life, because once you overcome and you become aware, turning it around, you will become Wonder Woman. You will become Superman, because if you can overcome narcissistic abuse, like, you're a beast. You can overcome anything in this life. There's nothing that you cannot do and succeed in. So I want you to, number 1, acknowledge the truth. Recognize that the toxic dynamic that you experienced Recognize it and name it. That's key. So narcissistic abuse, recognize it and name it. And then number 2, set boundaries. You have to protect your peace and say no without guilt. And that's the hardest thing to do, especially when you have grown up in religious toxic environments. You're constantly gaslit and guilted and taught to feel unworthy and not deserving of freedom. And that's the trick of narcissistic abuse. That's the trick of the religious narcissist. They don't want you to be free. They don't want you to be, because they're energy vampires. They want to siphon your energy, because when you're in a low vibrational state, then they get energy from that. They are connected to your self-doubt. They're connected to your fear. They're connected to you in a low vibrational state. So once you begin to set boundaries and say no without guilt, oh, they don't like that, because you begin to take your power back. So number 3 is educate yourself. Learn about narcissistic abuse, what trauma bonding is, and healing to regain your clarity. Number 4, seek support. Therapy, that's huge. Support groups is huge. Or have some trusted allies that can validate your experience and help you grow. Number 5 is practice radical self-worth. Reconnect with your true self through journaling, affirmations, and mindfulness. And in my previous video, episode 1, I went through meditation and we did some affirmations. Go back and listen to that and listen to it overnight. Just fill yourself with affirmations of self-worth. Fill yourself with affirmations of awareness of who you are and how powerful you are, and that there's absolutely nothing impossible for you, that you're deserving of a healthy relationship. You're deserving of good things. You're deserving of provision. You're deserving of abundance in every area of your life. You are deserving. And then number 6, cut the cord. If possible, go no contact with the narcissist. If not, implement strict low contact strategies. Healing isn't linear. Be patient with yourself as you unlearn toxic patterns and create a life rooted in freedom. You're going to see the results. I promise you. Now, here is the call to action. Breaking these chains, breaking the chains of narcissistic abuse begins with awareness, but it doesn't end there. It's about rediscovering your worth, reclaiming your power, and rewriting your story. If this episode resonated with you, take one small step today, whether it's setting a boundary, seeking support, or affirming your worth. Each action moves you closer to freedom. Thank you for joining me on Radical Self-Worth today. Remember that you are worthy, you're enough, and you're capable of living free from the chains of abuse. So until next time, stay empowered, stay kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, be compassionate with yourself, and stay free. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs it. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you again for joining me on this journey of radical self-worth. Remember, every step that you take towards healing, no matter how small, is a step toward the life you deserve. One filled with peace, purpose, and unshakable self-worth. If today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe, leave a review, and leave a comment, and share this podcast with someone who might need a little bit of light on their path. Let's build a community of strength and healing together. Until next time, keep honoring your worth, trust your journey, and creating your reality, one empowered choice at a time. This is Radical Self-Worth. I am Jeremia Renee, and you are unstoppable.